Hello friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and I'm coming to you from beautiful Northwest Ohio, where this week we had our first snow of the wintry season. It was kind of a surprise. It's not typical in Ohio to experience snow this early in November. Thankfully, we had a little bit of forewarning that it was coming, so I was able to dig into our storage, pull out all of the kids' snow gear. That's always one of the first things I need to do at the beginning of the cold season. With so many children, 9 children, we have tons of snow gear accumulated in all the different sizes, and I have them pick out what fits them in this current season, and we lay it all out, and then we have to see which little odds and ends we might need to purchase to fill in the gaps. So I was thankful that we got a little bit of a warning, and so I was able to get everything pulled out of storage and washed and ready for them to use to play in the snow this week. And since snowy, cold weather was coming, I thought it would be the perfect time to bring you a video on something that I had discussed previously when we were doing a lot of cost savings videos on how much money you save on making things homemade versus purchasing them in the store. I had mentioned that maybe sometime I'll do a video on the true cost of heating your house with wood as compared to heating in other ways. So if that's something that interests you, I'm going to talk about that in this video, and why don't you stick around? So first, let me start by explaining our home heating situation. We live in a farmhouse. It's a very old farmhouse, we think built around 1867, but it's very old and only 1,600 square feet. And it's built kind of like a box, so it heats very efficiently with wood. We have an old wood stove that sits centrally located in the middle of that box. And here is a video of it right here. It came with our house, and we have no idea how old it is because there is no identifying information anywhere on it. Our chimney sweep, his best guess is that it was produced sometime in the 1970s. It's made out of a very thick cast iron, and we absolutely love it. It does have 2 electric blowers on the side, but because the cast iron is so thick, it puts off so much radiant heat. We have rarely ever had to plug in the blowers on the side. It just gets hot enough without them. There are a couple times over the last 10 years that we've lived in this house that the temperatures have been below zero for sustained periods of time, and in those cases we have plugged that in the blowers, but in a typical winter we might never plug them in. So as I mentioned, this wood stove came with the house. Our other wood stove is in my husband's workshop slash garage, and it was a hand-me-down stove that we purchased from our chimney sweep. As he replaces old stoves in people's homes, he hauls off the old wood stoves and then will refurbish and sell them. So we were able to purchase our second wood stove that you'll see later in this video for $200 from our chimney sweep. So we have never purchased a brand new stove, and that definitely brings down the cost of heating with wood. If you're purchasing a stove brand new, it's probably going to cost you a couple $1,000 on top of installation, which might be another couple $1,000. And so it's going to take you many years to pay off the cost of that wood stove, but for many reasons it's worth it, and we're going to dig into why right here in this video. So on a typical, let's say 32-degree winter day here in Ohio, if our thermostat were set at 70 degrees, our home would use approximately 115 kilowatt hours of electricity to heat using the electric baseboard heaters that are in our home. Our home does not have a furnace, and it has a very old furnace that we're thinking is also maybe from the 1960s or 70s, full of asbestos, very old. The ductwork is still there, but the actual furnace is half missing. And so someone at some point installed electric baseboard heaters in our home, and we disconnected them after one winter of living in our home because we found the children were dropping things in the electric baseboard heaters, and it was a fire hazard, and on top of it, it was very costly. That amount of kilowatt hours of electricity was costing us anywhere between $15 to $20 a day to heat our house in electricity. and the wood is much more efficient. Let's start getting into the numbers. So a cord of wood is typically how it's sold. It's 128 cubic feet of wood, which is about 4 by 4 by 8 feet. That is how we buy it. One cord of wood around here is at the most going to be about $250, and that would be for hardwood like oak, hickory, maple, or maybe locust, the best woods to burn. That cost can vary depending on where you live. It's very reasonable where we live at the most $250. Now, when you're buying wood, make sure that you're not buying a face cord of wood. A lot of people will advertise wood in that way, and that's typically only a third of an actual cord of wood. In any given winter, we might burn up to 5 cords of wood. That's with 2 wood burners going, but it's usually less than that. It just depends. Here in Northwest Ohio, we start burning in late October or early November, and we may need to burn wood in the wood stove all the way until April, maybe some years even into May. We have had snows. So it just depends on the year and how mild the weather is going to be. Now, a cord of wood contains 14 to 16 million usable BTUs. That's the same number of BTUs as maybe 200 to 250 gallons of heating oil or 3,500 to 4,500 kilowatt hours of electricity. So you can see that burning the wood is much cheaper than the electric heat that was costing us $15 to $20 a day if we were using all of those in the house. Most estimates say that using a wood burning stove is going to cut our heating costs by anywhere from 40 to 70%, and it really just depends on many factors. There are costs associated with it besides the cost of the stove that I mentioned and the installation that could run you several $1,000s. You have maintenance costs. We do have a chimney sweep that comes once a year, and for about $150, he will sweep the chimney and inspect it to make sure there's no creosote that's building up in it that could cause house fires. It is something you could do yourself. There's a do-it-yourself cleaning kit for the chimney that you could purchase for probably around $100, and you could crawl on your roof every year and do that yourself. But for the peace of mind of having a professional get his eyes on the chimney and on the wood stove and look for any cracks and faults and creosote buildup and any issues that we may be having, since we're burning our wood stove all the time in the winter, it's just important for peace of mind, in our opinion, to have a professional do that. So we do spend the cost on maintenance every year. There are some processing costs associated with the wood, such as chainsaws, fuel, oil, the cost to run the splitter maybe. So that is factored into the cost of heating with wood. We also, some home insurance policies you may look into might increase your plan a little bit, maybe an extra $50 or $100 or whatever if you're going to have wood stoves or multiple wood stoves on your property. So those are some of the extra costs associated besides the actual wood. Now, wood doesn't need to be expensive. There are some years we haven't paid anything for our wood because maybe storms came through the area and a lot of trees came down in tornadoes or whatever was happening. And believe it or not, tree companies, whether they're taking a tree down for you intentionally or if they're coming to clean up after a storm, they charge you to haul away that wood. And so all of our friends and family and a lot of people in the area know that we heat our home 100% with wood. And when storms come through, which we deal with every year in Northwest Ohio, we will get calls from people asking if we want the wood the tree that came down in their yard. And so we do them a favor by saving them the cost. It may run them $100 or more to have a tree company come in and haul off that wood, and we save them that money, and we'll come and do the cleanup, and out of that we get free wood from that. So there are some years where, because of the number of free trees we've been able to take down, because of that we haven't had to purchase wood, and there are other years where maybe we've had to purchase several cord. So our costs fluctuate year after year, just depending on the situation. This year we had 2 large trees come down on our own property, and that really helped the cost. Another thing that will change the cost of burning with wood is how efficiently you're burning. I do know that the first year we had a wood stove, we did not know what we were doing and we wasted so much wood. And it just wasn't as hot as it should be. So, here are some tips for making sure you're burning wood as efficiently as possible. You want to always make sure you're burning seasoned wood that is completely dry, under an 18% moisture level. They do sell gadgets that can test the moisture level for you, but you'll just know that when you do cut down a live tree, you're going to want to let it sit for a year and season. You do not want to burn that green wood. You're going to create creosote and it's not going to burn hot. Wet wood actually wastes up to 50% of its energy boiling off the water that's in it. Also, another factor is the type of wood that I mentioned that you're going to purchase. If you're getting hardwood, such as those maples and oaks and locusts that I mentioned, they're going to give you more heat per volume of wood. So make sure when you're purchasing your cord of wood that you ask what type it is. You're not going to want a softwood. If you're paying a premium amount of money for that cord, make sure it is a hardwood variety. You also, the split sizes of your wood really do matter. Small splits of wood definitely burn hotter, and larger splits of wood will burn longer. And so you're going to want to make sure that you have a mix of that depending on the time of the day. Like, for example, when we go to bed, we don't need it to be burning super hot because nobody's in the room, but we do want to have a slow burning fire. So we will put larger splits of wood in the stove as it burns overnight. And then maybe when we wake up in the morning and it's really cold in the house, we put some smaller splits in there and that will burn much hotter. Apart from that, you're going to want to keep the stove temperature between 400 to 650 degrees. Anything below that, you might start building creosote at maybe 300 degrees or below. If you start getting to 750 degrees or above, you're at risk of a fire in the house. You're burning it way too hot. And they sell little magnets that both of our wood stoves have that we put on there that help us monitor the temperature. You also might want to keep a couple inches of ash in your wood stove for insulation. That definitely helps you burn your wood more efficiently. Other than that, there are other benefits besides just the heat costs that you save. I cook on my wood stove. You can see me right now cutting up some fat from the pigs that we had processed earlier in the summer, and I'm going to render it down on top of the wood stove. Something like this fat would have rendered down in a crock pot or roaster oven all day long and would have cost me several dollars worth of electricity, but it will burn down or render down for free on top of the wood stove. And I'll cook all sorts of soups and things up there, even bake bread in a Dutch oven. We'll keep water heated in a tea kettle so that we don't have to use electricity to do that. We'll put water on top of the stove and it'll provide free humidification in the house. Other costs that are a benefit would be the ash that we create. It can help replace fertilizer and garden lime. We use it as a de-icer on our property. It's a cleaning scrub. It'll help clean the glass that's in the wood stove. Another benefit is it's a drying rack, so it cuts back on how often we have to use our electric dryer to dry clothes. We can put clothes on a drying rack in front of the wood stove and they will dry overnight for us for free. So all of this saves us money in using the wood stove to heat the house. So in all, the typical family like us living in Ohio can save $1,000 to $2,000 in reduced heating costs every year by heating with wood. Maybe $100 to $200 of reduced cooking costs and the cost of heating water with an electric tea kettle. Maybe $50 to $150 in humidifier costs or dryer reduction costs since you're not using your electric dryer. Maybe another $25 to $75 in ash uses, and maybe $100 to $300 in power outage costs that might be associated with running a generator or something to provide heat for your house, since whenever the power goes out, if you're heating with wood, you'll always have heat with a wood stove. In all, it is going to be a little extra work to heat your house with wood. For us, there is some work associated with stacking the wood and hauling it inside the house and a little extra cleanup in heating the house versus just turning on the button for the furnace. But it is worth it to save thousands of dollars every year on electricity. and heating costs. Now, if you're someone that doesn't live on a homestead and you live in a neighborhood, you can burn wood there too. We lived in the suburbs before we moved here, and one of the first things that we did when we moved to our house was to convert our gas fireplace. We ripped that out. It was very easy to do. Adam did it in just a few hours, and we converted it back to a wood-burning fireplace. Now, a fireplace isn't going to be as efficient at heating the house as a wood-burning stove, but it will still provide you some supplemental heat that will cut back on your costs and be helpful in the case of a power outage. There is nothing like wood heat. Radiant wood heat is so comforting. It's just very special. It also is really good for you. It kills dust mites and reduces allergens in the house and can actually affect viruses. The low level of humidity and high radiant heat makes it really hard for viruses to hang around. And we just absolutely love it. We do keep an air doctor plugged in to help reduce any potential air pollutants that could come from the wood stove. But as long as you're heating efficiently with your wood and cleaning things up and not burning wet wood, you're not going to have to worry about polluting the air in your home with your wood-burning wood stove. So we've kind of been on a theme lately with home economics, and this is something that many of you had questions about, so I thought I would just touch on why we heat exclusively with wood and how much money that saves us every year. It is in the thousands, and as you guys know, my mantra is every bit counts. It all adds up, and there is peace of mind not only in knowing that we're saving our family money heating this way, but it's also there in our cold winters in case of emergency power outages. And I have 9 babies to keep warm, so we are very grateful for the wood stove. It really is the center of our home, literally and figuratively in the winter. You can always find us crouched around it. So we'll be back next week with more, friends. Until then, I hope you're staying warm and cozy. Be blessed, friends. Bye.